Welcome back to another interactive broker video. So today's actually going to be kicking off what I'm going to call like a sub-series within the main series. So the main series being the interactive broker, building the API client in Python. This sub-series is going to actually focus on something a little bit different, which is we're going to talk about actually how to use the client, right? So I know for some of you, you don't really care per se, how it's built. You're kind of just more concerned like, hey, how do I use it? And so I want to make sure that the content that's ready to share with individuals, because, I kind of feel it's in a good spot. I want to make sure that information is put out there so that way you can start using the library. Just because I know people kind of want to start using it in that regard. Now, that being said, it doesn't mean it's finished. It doesn't mean, the way we're using the endpoint now won't necessarily change, but for the most part, the general structure is going to be there. And then generally how you pass through things is naturally going to kind of follow this certain logic. So just keep that in mind. Again, it might change slightly, but for the most part, it will stay relatively the same. Additionally, I do make a couple big assumptions in this video. So for example, the only thing I'm going to show you how to do is how to install the Java, basically how to install Java on your system, because to use this library, you do need Java installed because all the authentication is handled through a Java server. So again, just to put that out there, I will only be walking through the Java installation, but you will be seeing me do things through Visual Studio Code, and you will also see me doing some basically source control stuff as well. So, cloning a repo and stuff like that. I will not be showing you how to install that information. That stuff, I do have some information out there, but it won't be covered in this video. All right. So it's an interesting time in the market, to put it nicely. I'm sure most of you have been kind of, watching what's been going on in the market lately, but there's been a lot of activity, a lot of volatility, and it's interesting. The market seems to be reacting pretty strong. I mean, we already had a 2,000 point move today, basically. So, me personally, I mean, again, this is just kind of my personal opinion. I think that's a little bit excessive. I think right now there's just a lot of uncertainty out there, and that's kind of really driving the market in a certain direction. But I also think this does highlight a certain thing when it comes to, how do you use automation to kind of help mitigate certain events like these, because ultimately at the end of the day, you have a strategy in place. That strategy really should be trying to handle situations like this, and ideally being able to build some type of automation system that can kind of help protect you in these situations and not let your emotions get the best of you, I think would be pretty helpful, ideally. But yeah, it's definitely been very interesting. The coronavirus has been putting a lot of fear into the market. And then recently we got some information related to oil, where basically OPEC is going to be slashing prices and stuff like that. And it looks like they're going to increase production at the same time. So that's kind of interesting, because for some industries, it's going to be great. For others, not so much. All right, so how do you basically get started with the API? Well, it's pretty straightforward. There's multiple places this link will be, but if for whatever reason you can't find this link or it's broken, all you're going to do is you're going to go to github.com and you're going to go to my username. It's areed1192. If you click it, you will see 3 different repositories, at least at the time of this recording. And then down here, you're going to see one called Interactive Broker Python API. You can also go to my repositories tab right here, and that will also show it to you as well. All you want to do is you click that link, and you'll be brought to the actual repo homepage. From here, this is where I store all the code that's related to this Interactive Broker Python API. Now, it's constantly changing right now. So the way you're looking at it right now, it's going to look very different a month from here. So just keep in mind, don't be surprised if you come in here and it changes. Now, once you're here, there's different resources that you do have access to. So one of them is actually how to install Java on your system. So if you go back to the main page and you click the resources folder, you will see a markdown file called IBW library Java installation. This is a markdown file. So basically it's just like a little text file that's a little bit highlighted and fancy. And it will walk you through how to install Java using Windows. I use Red Hat in order to install it. So you will need to create an account with Red Hat. But once you've done that, you can go to this resource page. And if you look and walk through these steps, it'll basically provide you the links. Now, if you click the first one, this will take you to the download page for the Java language. And then from here, you'll see a lot of different options. Now, obviously, this will change a little bit depending on the version that they're on. So it might not always be January 2020, but really what you're looking for is you're looking for the Microsoft installer for the operating system that you use. Now, right now, this is only for Windows. There are other ones here. So you can install this using Mac, but I don't have a Mac, so I can't necessarily show you on the video, but I will have instructions for you in that markdown file. Now, what you want to do is you want to go down to the second option. This is the OpenJDK 8 Windows 64-bit. I'm on 64-bit. Most people are on 64-bit, but if you're not, there is a 32-bit option as well. You're just going to want to go over here to the download and then click it. This is assuming you're logged in though. So if you're not logged in, it will prompt you to log in. And once you log in, it will redirect you back to this page. If you do not have an account, you will need to create an account and then you will need to navigate back to this page. But again, it's still the same. You're still going to download it just like this. So if you just download it, it's a relatively large file, so it might take a second or two depending on how good your internet connection is. You can put it really wherever you want. There's really no restriction of where you put it. Normally, if I'm going to install something, I just put it on my desktop. So we'll put it there. I'm a little bit sick. Has been fun. It's not bad. It's just like, it's a sore throat. I personally think it's because of the weather, but that's just me. We have this whole shift, and I've noticed that the flowers go into bloom. And when the flowers go into bloom, I never used to have this problem, but man, allergies, not fun. And you can see it's downloading. Again, takes a second. It's kind of surprised it's taking this long. Usually I have much faster download speeds than that. And then you'll see it right down over here once it's all finished. We're going to wait for it to finish up, but basically what we're going to do is once it's finished, we're just going to run the installation process. And then once you've run that installation process, you do have one extra step that you need to do. And that extra step is that we're going to be setting an environment variable. So that way we can run Java using a certain command argument. All right, looks like it's good to go. So again, you can see it's right here on my desktop. So you're just going to double click it. And it's going to ask you to prepare to install. You just click next. You want to make sure you accept the terms. Click next. You can just keep the default settings, it's fine. Then you can click next, and then you just go through the installation process. Now, I already have it installed, so I don't need to go through it, but you just go to install. It's going to ask you if you want to finish. At the end of it, you just say you finish, and you should be good to go. Okay, and then once you've done that, there is one extra step that you need to do. So you do want to set your environment variable for Java. And so the way you do this is I already have it down here. Basically, you just need to copy this little line right here inside to your console and you run it and that will set it. Now, keep in mind, you might see a different version than what you're seeing here. That's okay. So even though this is 0.181, you just want to make sure that you set it to the version that you have. The safest way to do this, and this is just what I do, navigate to the folder. So if you open up your file explorer, you're going to go down to programs, which is going to be in your C drive. And it's program files. And then from here, you're going to see a folder called Red Hat. You double click in there, and then you're going to see the version that you currently have installed. Now, again, you can technically have multiple versions installed. There's nothing stopping you. But normally, at least for the purposes of using this library, you only need one. And then from here, you just want to double click into it. And then all you want to do is you want to copy that file path right up here. So if you click in here into the file path, I don't know, text box, is that what we would call that? You just copy it. And then what you're going to do is you're going to go down over here to your search. And then it's going to be Command prompt. Normally what I do is I just run it as administrator. Sometimes you don't have to. Most people, they don't have to worry about it, but some people, if you have your system set up in such a way and you do not run it as an administrator, you cannot execute the command. So normally, anytime I'm modifying something, I just run it as administrator by default. So when you go over here, you'll see run as administrator. It normally prompts you, that's fine, just click OK. And then the console should open up just like that. Now, again, you do want to make sure that you copy it. So you just want to make sure set x Java home. So we'll copy that. Put that right there. And then you also want to make sure you copy that file path. Sometimes if there's spaces in the file path, I've had people where for whatever reason, their system will not like that. Play it safe, just surround it in quotes. And then you should see a success just like that. And now from here, what you should now be able to do is if you type Java, you should be able to see all your options related to Java. Additionally, if you type where Java, you will see where Java is installed currently on your system. So if you see this, you're good to go. Again, just to reiterate, you might see slightly different numbers here. It's simply the version that you're using. So don't freak out if it doesn't match exactly. Okay, so that's the first big thing. Great, now you've done it. That was honestly the hardest thing out of all this, is literally just installing Java. Everything from there is pretty straightforward. Now what we're going to do is we're going to clone the repository. What does cloning mean? Basically, all it's meaning is we're basically just taking a copy of it that gives you the ability to modify the code that I put up there for you to use. So really, that's a great idea because now, if you want, you can take the code and modify it however you want. If you want to extend functionality, if you want to limit functionality, you are allowed to your heart's desire. To clone the repository, you do want to go over here to the nice little green button. It is clone or download. If you do not have, if you do not have the, if you do not have Git installed on your system, you can download the zip file. So you do have that option as well. However, I really encourage you, because most of my stuff is on GitHub, just install Git Bash if you're on Windows. If you're on Mac, there's another option you can use. So you have options. You can, if you want, download the zip, but for the video purposes, we are going to clone it. So you want to get this URL right here. So you want to make sure it says clone with HTTPS. If you click this little icon right here, this will copy it to your clipboard. Of course, it doesn't give you a notification to say it was copied, but it was copied. And then you're going to open up Visual Studio Code. If it's not already open, you would just go right over here to your little search bar. And if you do Visual Studio Code, and then if you do new window or open, it will just open up Visual Studio Code. Then from here, assuming that you do have Git installed, you can do Shift-Control-P to bring up the command palette. If you want to, you can also go to View, so the View portion on the ribbon. I'm going to zoom this in just a tiny bit. Go to View, Command Palette. Then from here, you're going to do Git, and then you're going to see the option Clone. You want to select that option so you can either navigate using your arrow key, or if it's highlighted, you can just press Enter. It will prompt you for the URL. You just paste that URL inside of it, and then you're going to press Enter again. You may be prompted for your credentials that are associated with GitHub. So again, just to reiterate, you may be prompted for your credentials. All you need to do is enter them, and then you're just going to proceed forward. Sometimes what happens is when you clone it, the prompt will be behind Visual Studio Code, so it won't pop to the front. And so if you're sitting there going, wow, this seems to be taking an awful long time to just clone, it's probably because it's asking for your credentials, but it's behind the main screen. So just keep that in mind. Once you basically enter the URL, it's going to ask you, where do you want to put this thing? You can put it wherever you want. You can just go to Personal. And then if you want, you can go to Desktop. You can create a new folder, and you can just say something like, I don't know, new folder, my trading, something like that. And then if you double click into it, and then you do select repository location, it will clone it. And then once it's finished cloning, it will prompt you. Do you want to open it in a new window, or do you just want to open it? Most time, if I have a blank window, I'll just do open, and that's more than enough. 90% of the time, that's all I need. Then from here, you have pretty much all the files you need to get started. But there are a couple extra things that you're going to want to do in order to make sure that everything works nice and smoothly. The next thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go to this resources folder. Inside the resources folder, you're going to see a couple options that are called client portal. This is the gateway. So this is how we authenticate with the Interactive Brokers API. There are two versions. There's a beta version and there's a regular version. The beta one obviously incorporates the latest features, where this one is the more stable one. Now, recently there was an issue with some of the authentication process with Interactive Brokers. They recommended that I use the client portal.beta one because apparently that's the latest stable one, but they're calling it beta. I don't know if this is going to change in the future, but at the time of recording this video, we apparently should be using beta. Would have guessed. So if you want, you can actually click right in here inside your file pane. And if you right click, you can do Reveal in File Explorer. And then you're going to see a zip file. So you want to copy that zip file. So if you just do Control Z, or you right click and then you go down to copy, you're going to go over here back to the main folder. So back to the one that's basically in this high level one. And you want to just paste it. So you can do Control V, or if you want, you can just do right click and then you can also do paste. Now you're going to want to unzip this file, because once we unzip it, that way we can talk to it from the robot. So if we right click and then if you do extract all, it will ask where you want to put it. You can just leave it where it is, do extract, bam. And then from here, you're good to go. Technically, you already have a copy in here in resources, so you can actually delete this copy. You don't need it. And then from here, you should see all these files. Now, a couple things to keep in mind is there are some files in here that are kind of important, and I think it kind of warrants just going over a little bit of what's all going on here. Inside the bin file is you're going to see two different, basically, one's a Windows batch file and then one's a shell file. And so this one, run.sh, is if you're on Mac, and then this other one, run.bat, is if you're on Windows. So this is how you start the server. So basically what you're going to do is there's a couple of command line arguments you can put through to manually start it. But what I'm doing in the library is I actually automate this process of starting it up for you. But it's very important to know that these are the files you need in order to actually run the server. So these are the ones that you have to call in order to run the server. Additionally, if you want the raw files, they're all right here. So if you open up the build library runtime folder, you will see all the jar files that go along with it. And then additionally, there is a distribution. This is actually like the main file that we use. There are some documentation links in here. Just keep in mind, sometimes, I don't know how up to date these are, but they do provide you a Java 8 download if you want it. This is not Red Hat though, so just keep that in mind. This is the one they're kind of recommending. I haven't personally used that because I didn't realize the documentation files were in here when I first downloaded it, so I just did Red Hat. But I'm sure it would work just fine. And then they kind of go over basically what is all in the server. And they also talk about where the gateway will be running. So it's very important to understand where it's running. It is a local host one. And then they also tell you a little bit more about the authentication process. And then they also do talk about real-time subscriptions, basically WebSockets. So you can stream data using the API. I do not currently have that integrated into the library at this point, but that will be coming in the future. And then finally, there is a folder called root. And the root one is basically where you can customize the behavior of the actual server. So things like which port do you want it to be on? By default, it's going to be on localhost 5000, but you could put it on 1000, 2000, whatever you want. They also have the proxy remote hosts, SSL, IP to location. This was actually what was causing the issue before for authentication. IPs that are allowed and denied, web apps, cores, and then additionally some server options as well. So again, if you do want some more advanced functionality, you do have that capability. But again, for the purposes of this video, we're not going to be modifying any of that. How much time have we spent? Wonderful, 20 minutes, more than enough. All right, so at this point, you have everything set up. In our next video, We're going to show you how to start the server. We're going to show you how to authenticate, and then we're going to show you how to run certain endpoints. So at this point, though, if you got any questions, by all means, put them down in the comments below, and I will do my best to help walk you through the process. Otherwise, we will see you in the next video.